Hello, everyone. I decided to hop on here. I just got back from the gym, so I apologize how I look. But I am jumping on here because um, obviously everybody that is following this case closely knows that the jury is now in deliberation and they have the case. So I wanted to quickly go over the closing arguments for the prosecution and the defense. And I'm going to start with the prosecution. Sorry. So this morning, Judge Gull gave the jury their jury instructions, and it was about 9:12 a.m. And she told the jury that they are the judges of the law and facts. You must consider the facts, Gull said. The jury will decide on count 1, felony murder for the killing of Abigail Williams while attempting to commit kidnapping. Count 2, felony murder for the killing of Liberty German. Count 3, murder for knowingly killing Abigail Williams. And count 4, murder for knowingly killing Liberty German. Gull told the jury that the state must prove each element of each crime beyond a reasonable doubt. Gull also told the jury that intentionally or knowingly would mean the suspect had the conscious objective to commit the crime. Gull also defined facts, inferences, and direct evidence. Gull said the fact that Allen chose not to testify cannot be considered. So we do have the prosecution's closing argument, and it started at 9:22 a.m. Prosecutor Nick McClelland, the Carroll County prosecutor, is the one who delivered the state's closing arguments. McClelland said February 13th, 2017 is a day that the community will never forget. A day Abigail Williams and Liberty German went to the trails for a walk and never came back. McClelland reminded the jury that the last thing Libby said to her family was, "Grandma, it'll be okay." McClelland showed the jury a PowerPoint presentation. The first slide was a picture of Abby and Libby on the car ride to the trails that day that they disappeared. It said the girls arrived around 1:48 p.m. McClelland described the search that day, saying no one's looking for 2 dead bodies. They're looking for 2 girls. McClelland said that this type of thing doesn't happen in this small community. McClelland described the search and finding the bodies and the clothes in the creek. McClelland again showed the jury the gory photos of the girls' dead bodies and Libby's phone covered in leaves and water and dirt. McClelland talked about the cartridge that was recovered from the scene. McClelland showed the bridge guy video, which he called the last moments of the girls' lives, captured on Libby's phone at 2:13 p.m. McClelland said it shows the moment that Abby and Libby were kidnapped. You can hear the fear in Libby's voice and see the fear on Abby's face. McClelland said bridge guy forced the girls down the hill. McClelland said investigators enhanced the video and showed it to the jury again. McClelland then went over the witness testimony about bridge guy. McClelland said that witness testimony put Allen's car in the lot. McClelland said the phone data showed the girls moving on the bridge at 2:13 p.m. as the bridge guy video was taken. McClelland said movements of the phone stops in the health app at 2:32 p.m. McClelland drew a map showing where various witnesses were in relation to Abby and Libby on the trail and where they reported seeing bridge guy. McClelland said they know bridge guy is the guy in the video who kidnapped and killed Abby and Libby. So if we can determine who bridge guy is, McClelland said, we can determine who killed Abby and Libby and who is guilty of felony murder. McClelland said the volunteer file clerk saw the tip box from 2017 in 2022. McClelland answered a jury question that Allen had the only 2016 black Ford Focus registered in Carroll County in 2017. McClellan said that that car can be seen in a video at the Hoosier Harvest store at 1:27 p.m. McClellan said that Allen confirmed he was wearing the same clothes as Bridge Guy and was on the Monon High Bridge that day. McClellan said that Allen changed his time frame by a few hours between his initial interview in 2017 and when the police interviewed him 5 years later. McClellan said Allen got more angry during the interview and would not let police search his phone and house. McClellan said the search warrant found the car and a Carhartt jacket. Surprise, surprise, McClellan said, the same jacket as Bridge Guy was wearing. McClellan said Allen had the same brand and caliber of bullet in his home as was found at the scene. McClellan said that 2 months after the murders, Allen Googled Delphi, Indiana news. Should I die now? Die now? Should I die now? Should I die now? McClellan said the Indiana State Police testing on the gun matched the cartridge found at the scene. McClellan said that was verified 3 times by the boss of the lab technician, who is the president of a national organization. See how the pieces are starting to fall into place, McClellan said. McClellan said that Allen had no explanation for why his bullet was at the scene. McClellan said Allen used his gun to get power over the girls. McClellan brought up Allen's second interview with his wife. You saw how he tried to manipulate her, McClellan said. McClellan said Allen got angrier and was arrested and sent to Westville. That could have been all we had to present to you, but it's not, McClellan said, because Allen started to confess. McClellan played a recorded call of Allen confessing to his wife, Kathy. I did it, Allen said. I killed Abby and Libby. No, you didn't, Kathy said. Yes, I did, Allen said. Why would you say that? Kathy said. Because maybe I did, Allen said. I think I did. I think I did, Allen repeated. Why would you say that? Kathy asked again. Because I think I did, Allen said. No, you didn't, Kathy said, crying. They are screwing with you to get you to say things. McClellan said Allen made the confessions unprovoked, unpressured, of his own free will. McClellan then brought up the letter Allen wrote to the warden saying he was ready to confess. McClellan talked about the confession to Allen's psychologist, Dr. Monica Walla. McClellan said Allen told Walla he made sure the girls were dead because he didn't want them to suffer. Allen told Walla he didn't think he sexually assaulted the girls, but didn't remember. McClellan said Allen was not behaving strangely or suffering from psychosis when he made that confession. McClellan brought up the multiple reports from guards that Allen had confessed. The guards reported Allen said he stole a box cutter to commit the killing and discarded it at the CVS where he worked. McClellan brought up Allen's more detailed confession to Walla, where he said he was scared by a van. McClellan said Allen told Walla he kept living his life because he hadn't been caught. McClellan then played another confession call, and this one was to his mom. So did Kathy tell you I did it? Allen asked. We're not going to discuss this, okay? Allen's mother said. You know we love you, don't you? Regardless, Allen asked. I just know you don't have it in you to do something like that, Allen's mother said. Mom, I wouldn't sit here and tell you I did it if I didn't, Allen said. Saying you did it doesn't mean you did, Allen's mother said. It does when I did it, Allen said. McClellan said that Allen's phone call was unprovoked and out of his own free will. McClellan said it shows Allen is not suffering from psychosis and that he trusts Walla and talked to her every day. McClellan said Allen continued to make confession calls even after he was moved to Wabash Valley Correctional Facility. McClellan said that Brian Harshman listened to more than 700 calls and reviewed Allen's confessions. McClellan said that Harshman followed up on Allen's statement about a van and found out that Brad Weber was driving his van home that day. Something only the killer would know, McClellan said. McClellan said there was no doubt in Harshman's mind that the voice in the Bridge Guy video was Richard Allen. Now all the pieces are clear, McClellan said. All the pieces are together. Richard Allen is the Bridge Guy. He kidnapped them and later murdered them. He slit their throats. He stole the youth and life away from Abby and Libby. McClellan again summarized the events of February 13th, 2017. McClellan said that as Libby clung to life and grabbed her throat, she began to cry. He said that then Alan killed Abby. McClellan said that Alan lived in the community for 5 years but didn't realize he left behind a cartridge from his gun. McClellan said that Alan then confessed over and over about what he did and how he did it, with details only the killer would know. McClellan asks the jurors to find Alan guilty on all 4 counts. And now the defense has their time that they're allotted for their closing argument. It happens at 12:16 p.m. today. The defense attorney, Brad Rosie, delivers the defense's closing arguments. Rosie points out that the trial has taken almost a month with 17 days of testimony. The defense trusts what you've heard over the past several weeks is more important than what you're hearing today, Rosie said. Rosie outlined 4 main issues with the state's case: broken timeline, bumbled ballistics, false confessions, and digital forensic data. Rosie said the prosecution never did a height analysis to match Alan with Bridge Guy. Rosie said the state lost hours of interview video. Rosie said the prosecution didn't search to see what Ford Focuses were in the county at the time until the middle of the trial. Rosie then talked about what witnesses had said about Bridge Guy, and Rosie said Betsy Blair described Bridge Guy as youthful, boyish, and not short. Rosie attacked the testimony of Sarah Carbaugh, who initially told police she saw Bridge Guy in a tan jacket and covered in mud, but changed her testimony to say he had a darker jacket and was covered in blood. She too did not tell the whole story until cross-examination, Rosie said. Rosie told the jury they are the judge of credibility. You may discount the testimony of a witness altogether, Rosie said. Rosie said when the jury receives testimony that is preposterous and too hard to believe, jurors should discount it altogether. Rosie said that the state tried to put Alan on a route in February 13th, 2017 that was the best fit for them. Rosie told the jury to look at the interrogation videos and how Alan handled himself in them. Rosie said the Indiana State Police Lab couldn't exclude Brad Weber's gun as being the one that cycled the round found by the girls' bodies. Rosie showed the jury photos of Weber's garage with sticks and Weber's statement to police that he didn't go straight home the day of the murders. Rosie said that Richard Allen made 3 confession calls on April 3rd, 2023, but the state only played 2 of them. Why not offer up context to you, Rosie asked. Why not tell the whole story? Rosie said Alan was in a Westville Correctional Facility cell for 13 months. Rosie said all the state wanted to talk about was what Alan said, not how he was. You must ask yourself why they wouldn't want you to see the truth, Rosie asked. Rosie said Alan was only arrested because of the magic bullet and that the state tried to use it as leverage against Alan. Rosie said the state asked the jury to just believe the witness who testified the cartridge at the scene matched Richard Allen's gun. Rosie said the state didn't tell the jury that someone plugged a headphone into Libby's phone between 5:45 p.m. and 10:32 p.m. the day the girls died. You should question the credibility of this investigation, Rosie said. Rosie said it shows desperation on the part of the state. Rosie said the state is recently adding details to its case, like fitting Weber's van into the timeline without showing the same interview. Rosie said the state waited until just before the trial before testing the strand of hair found in Abby's hand. Rosie said there was no proof Alan was the one that searched for topics in October of 2022. Rosie said between his deposition and the trial, state's witness, Dr. Roland Kaur, magically came up with the idea that a box cutter killed the girls. Rosie said Kaur met with the prosecution 3 times after the defense deposed him. Rosie played the Bridge Guy video and said the jury would not be unreasonable if they decided, I don't know, if Carbaugh saw anything. Rosie said the witness testimony is not consistent with 5'5" Richard Allen. Rosie talked about the overlapping witnesses who saw and heard nothing when the killings allegedly happened. Rosie said the state has ignored and doesn't want to talk about the possibility of multiple actors involved in the killings. Rosie said a law enforcement officer said at one point police did suspect multiple people. Rosie said the state believes that Allen killed one girl while controlling and then killing the other, redressed the girls, and covered their bodies. Rosie said the state wants jurors to believe that 5'5" Allen did that all by himself. Rosie said that during jury selection, jurors were told to exercise your common sense. Now is the time to exercise common sense, Rosie said. Rosie said that Allen called law enforcement himself to say he was at the bridge. Rosie said the officer who interviewed him soon after found nothing unusual. Rosie said even when police lied to Allen in 2022, he maintained his innocence. Rosie said the state wants jurors to believe a change of tone is evidence of guilt. Rosie called that nonsense. Rosie said that if the state is bearing down on you and falsely accusing you of murder, you would respond the same way that Richard Allen did. Rosie said Allen lived in Delphi for 5 years after the murders. Rosie said Allen didn't flee because he didn't do it. Rosie said the magic bullet evidence was bad, too. He said when police first got Allen's gun, they cycled rounds 4 to 6 times in a row and still didn't get marks sufficient to judge if they were similar to the bullet by the girls' bodies. Rosie said the tech did an apples to oranges comparison by comparing a bullet fired from Allen's gun to the unfired one found at the scene. Rosie said the photos of the marks should cause the jurors concern and consternation. Where the hell are the sufficient agreements? Rosie asked. He asked where the marks were supposed to match up. Use your eyes, Rosie said. Rosie said the matching marks were subclass characteristics and an example of why this is a dangerous business. This is a subjective game, Rosie said. He told jurors the witness told them you should just believe me. When the jury asked why the defense didn't do their own ballistics testing, Rosie said the state's ballistics was so poor the defense didn't think they needed their own ballistics to overturn it. Rosie then tackled the issue of the false confessions. Rosie said that Allen was kept in unprecedented conditions for a pretrial detainee. Rosie described Allen's cell as the most secure unit in Indiana. Rosie said Allen was treated like a convicted rapist and murderers in that prison. Rosie said that no human, no matter how strong, could be in those conditions for that long without having a breakdown. Rosie said Allen never saw the reaction or the recreation units at the prison, only a small outdoor cage. Solitary confinement is damaging to a man or woman's brain, Rosie said. Rosie said the state violated their 30-day maximum for a mentally ill detainee in solitary confinement. When the dust settled, he was there for 13 months, Rosie said. How much can one human endure? Rosie said the state didn't want the jury to see the conditions Allen was in at the prison. Rosie said the state cherry-picked, saying Allen was psychotic on the 13th, so they played a confession from the 14th instead. Rosie said the truth was that Allen was psychotic and being stuck with a needle the entire time. Rosie said prison psychologist Dr. John Martin changed his mind on the witness stand, agreeing that Allen was psychotic. Who could believe Allen was oriented to time and place, Martin said. Rosie said that false memories start out as false beliefs. Rosie told the jury to listen to what Allen actually said in his confessions. I did it. Maybe I did it. I think I did it. I think I did. I don't know. Rosie said they were all false beliefs. Rosie said the data on the phone should make the jury question the state's case. He held up a sign with these items, 5:45 p.m., 10:32 p.m., and 4:33 a.m. The first is when Libby's phone said a headphone was plugged in. The second is when the phone says the headphone was removed. The last is when Libby's phone connected to a cell phone tower after hours of being disconnected. Rosie said the phone has no feelings, emotions, or opinions. Rosie said it just has raw data that speaks for itself. The phone is right, Rosie said. Rosie asked if it was ironic that Brad Weber didn't go straight home, had sticks in his driveway, and that the state couldn't rule out his gun. Rosie said the state wanted the jury to see all the knives and box cutters at Allen's home, but Rosie said there was no DNA evidence linking any of them to the murders. Rosie said Allen's confession from Allen was manipulated. He said Dr. Monica Walla's version reads like a story, but that Allen was psychotic and couldn't put together a logical story. Rosie said Walla was infatuated with the Delphi Murders case. Rosie said the bridge guy was walking on the bridge and that witnesses saw him waiting and standing on a platform. Rosie said the state tried to convince the jury without evidence that Alan was an alcoholic. Rosie said the fact that people searching in the area didn't find the girls the night of February 13th raises the question of whether the bodies were actually there when the scene was searched. Rosie also mocked the state's reliance on Alan owning a blue Carhartt jacket. There's a revelation for you, Rosie said. A blue Carhartt jacket in a closet in Delphi, Indiana. Rosie said that Alan was alone in an 8 by 10-inch cell for months. Do you blame him for picking up a Bible? Rosie asked. Rosie called the state's witness a mind reader for knowing the bridge guy voice was Alan's. Rosie said dozens of people called to say they recognized the voice. No one identified Richard Allen as the man on that bridge, Rosie said. Rosie said no digital data, fingerprint, DNA, trace material, or forensic evidence ties Allen to the scene. At the end of the day, the state's timeline is crumbled, Rosie said. The magic bullet is nothing but a tragic bullet. Rosie repeated that the times are unexplained. Rosie showed the jury a piece of medieval racks and thumbscrews used to torture people. And Rosie said, as a society, we have evolved into other forms of interrogation, like putting someone in a cell in solitary and throwing away the key. Someone should have spoken up, Rosie said. Something's wrong here. Something's not right. Where's the moral compass? Rosie asked. Then he told the jury, you're the moral compass. Rosie showed the jury photos of Alan in prison, and then he showed them a picture of a python wrapped around a rodent. This is the power of the state, Rosie said. Now it is not the time to return to the Middle Ages, Rosie said. Acknowledge that this is not the way we function. Rendering a verdict of guilty would be endorsing this behavior. We are asking you to set Alan free and give a verdict of not guilty, Rosie said. The defense's closing arguments are finished. There is a lunch break until 1 p.m. Prosecuting attorney Nick McClellan will have the prosecution's rebuttal before Special Judge Francis Gull gives the jury its final instructions. The prosecution's closing arguments lasted 58 minutes, while the defense's lasted 1 hour and 17 minutes. And that's all I have for you right now, but I just wanted to let you know that the jury has the case and we are on jury watch. Once I have the rebuttal that the state gave, I will let you know. Thanks, guys, for watching.